is The Chris Abraham Show.
Welcome to Season 4, Episode 15 of The Chris Abraham Show. My name is Chris Abraham, and I am going to be talking today about what my points of pain are and what my levels of suffering are and what I expect in the world in terms of general environmental violence before I consider the world going to pot. And you'll be extremely surprised, but there are reasons for it. And I've even experienced a lot of it and completely normalized it as well. I'll be back after the break. Welcome back to the Chris Abraham Show. My name's Chris Abraham. It's Season 4, Episode 15. And I am on about what I expect the world to be before I think that there is a civil war, or before I believe that there's a revolution, or before I believe that there's a fascist uprising, or before I believe that democracy is dying, or that our freedoms are infringed upon, or that the world is going to end. And my point of pain is probably 1,000x higher than yours, because all y'all think that a civil war is coming, and I don't even see skirmishes that have anything to do with the left or the right. I only see crime skirmishes. I don't see any political skirmishes. I don't see enough blood on the ground. I don't see enough bombing. And I certainly don't see discotheques and cafes being rocketed or bombed the way they are on a daily basis, or grocery stores are on a daily basis in Israel and Palestine. So, I guess that is my point of pain. Until I see skirmishes that are not crime-related, and I will go into an aside in a second, so I'll see you back here in a second. Welcome back to Season 4, Episode 15 of The Chris Abraham Show, previously known as Chriscast. And when my buddy invaded Iraq with the army back in, 2003, he saw the collapse of Saddam Hussein, and Saddam Hussein was actually an authoritarian peacekeeper. He was a maniac. His sons were terrifying, but he was able to turn a series of tribes into a nation state until we collapsed the government, killed Saddam, or had him killed by the people, the Volk. And I'll be honest with you, from then on, there were two layers in all of Iraq. There were the Taliban and Al Qaeda and ISIS invaders. They were the cells that came in across the border. They were fighters from Iran, from Syria, from around the region, and they were fighting the American troops and the unified troops from, I guess, mostly America, but quasi-UN, quasi-Britain, quasi-Australia, quasi-Canada, etc. too. So my buddy said that there were two layers in Iraq, neither of which touched each other. The one layer was the war that was going on between the insurgents from ISIS and Al Qaeda, and the Royal Guard insurgents from Iran, and versus the Western invaders, the United States, etc. And then there was another layer, which was just the tribes that had previously existed in a pre-Saddam Iraq and still existed based on families and so forth, called from here forward warlords. So these warlords, these tribal warlords, were having their very own skirmishes over land and over turf and over resources and over money and drugs and food and materials and weapons and ammo, etc., etc., etc. But it was completely separate. These were warlords. A lot of them did have the famous Hilux/Tacoma pickup trucks and so forth, but they weren't interested in defending Iraq. They were interested in filling the vacuum that was left behind when the government of Iraq, led by the family of Saddam Hussein, collapsed. So neither the twain should meet. Neither the twain did meet, unless they just happened to meet on the streets. But it was not their intention to try to rocket, attack, whatnot. In many cases, there was a lot of gratefulness going on to the U.S. because the U.S. took out Saddam Hussein and his iron fist and allowed the entire nation state to dissolve into what it had always been for thousands of years, which is a patchwork of tribes and families going back thousands of years. So that changed, the entire region. America's a lot like that too. America has, politics, it has police forces, it has national guards, it has state and local governments, it has all of this going on. But the warlords in the United States don't care about that. The warlords only have beef with other warlords. The warlords want to take turf. They're warlords. When you see drive-by crime in Chicago, that's warlord versus warlord. You could call it gangs, whatever, but it's gotten to the point where it's escalated that it's a military conflict. It's a military conflict that is on another layer of a military conflict. So I don't include that. I don't include street violence. I don't include street gun violence. I believe that needs to be attacked by the FBI the way the FBI took out the Italian mafia and the gangs from the 20s and 30s. That is something we can do, but that's not political. That is not Democrat or Republican. That is a war against the mafia. That is a war against gangland violence. That is a war against warlords. That is taking the streets back from tribes. I mean, tribes, family, gangs, all the same stuff. You could be beaten or you could be born in to a gang. And that gang could be a monarchy, can be a Hussein family, can be a Bin Laden family, or it can be, Phi Kappa Psi, or the Freemasons, or whatnot, right? So I do not include gang violence when I think about political unrest that would result in a civil war. The the gangs can be used as an accelerant. I mean, it's really easy to use all the the gang war violence. Add that to the gun crime and the mass shooting violence, but they have nothing to do with each other. There's no crazy Proud Boy or whatnot. And so I dismiss all gangland violence, because all gangland violence should be under the control of the FBI, and the FBI should be taking those people down, whether they're MS-13 or whatever. Like, I don't care about their colors or their nationalities or their reasons for living. I don't even care if that's, I mean, if it doesn't affect me, right? Not in my backyard. It doesn't seem to be affecting me, but it's killing a lot of kids, killing a lot of people in impoverished areas, which, if you ever watch The Wire, these impoverished areas tend to be lawless, and lawless areas are most attractive to gangs and gangland areas, etc. And at some point, you'll think that at some point they'll transition to legitimate businesses like all gangs do. But for now, lots of people are dying, but they're not political. You can't even blame them on Soros or whomever. You can't. You can say that they're being used as a way to show lawlessness in America, or as a way of illustrating racism in America. And you can definitely say that anytime anybody in a gang who is a person of color, who's black or brown, and engages in fisticuffs or shootouts with the police, and someone dies, and that person is on the street, you can definitely politicize that. But it doesn't look at itself and see politicalization. It sees itself as business. As far as I'm concerned, in a world where the only business you can really get if you're academically ignorant, if you don't actually care about the system and the system doesn't care about you, not stupid, you can be a genius and still be ignorant. I'm not referring to the ability to learn, just the appeal of learning. And learning being portrayed, and this even happened in Hawaii. Like, when I was in Hawaii, all the local kids who were totally into becoming national merit scholars were called by all the general local kids, they were called bananas. They were called yellow on the outside and white on the inside. So as long as people hate white people in this country, and as long as academic achievement and cultural assimilation is equated with being an Uncle Tom, as long as that happens, then there's not going to be any desire to follow that track. So anyway, back to the next step, which is my tolerance for violence, my tolerance for all kinds of things. And I'll even go into January 6th a little bit, but not too much. Be right back. Brass tacks. Until my neighborhoods are politically, like, for example, the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, for example, Hamas in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, and circa 1960 and 1970, Weather Underground in the United States, until there are political bombings, political kidnappings, political attacks, murders, assassinations, drive-bys, and blood flowing from automatic fire in the streets, I do not consider America even remotely close to civil war. When I was 15 or 16 or 14 or 13, I was supposed to go to Spain to spend a summer learning Spanish, Castilian Spanish. And I think it was 85 when I was 15. And we ended up canceling it because there were bombings at discotheques, or clubs, as you call them, at discotheques all throughout Europe. I think maybe it was focused in Spain. Hey, Google, were there bombings in Spain in 1985?
Sure. Here's some helpful information I found on the web.
So, on 12 April 1985, the El Descanso restaurant in Madrid, Spain, was bombed in a terrorist attack. It was a bombing with improvised explosive device. It killed 18 and injured 82. This was happening all over Europe in the 80s, in the 70s. The IRA had bombings all over Great Britain, especially London. Huge bombings, shootings, kidnappings, assaults, assassinations. This is still happening in Central South America. That's why people are leaving Nicaragua, Venezuela, Cuba, etc., right? I don't think Cuba is having a problem. I think it's more Salvador. I'm not sure if it's even Venezuela and that kind of thing. But either way, I'm not even concerned by smash and grabs. I'm not that bothered by manifestations. Like when I lived in Germany, it was pretty common for people to just piss and moan by throwing pavement stones hither and thither. I think that we're very thin-skinned here, and I won't even start worrying about a civil war until there are skirmishes, right? With regards to January 6th, here's my poop. Nobody had a gun that was brandished. I don't believe the Department of Justice whenever they said that there was a secret gun or secret pistol or secret bomb, double secret this, double secret that. All I see is an attack on the Capitol that didn't have any guns, that didn't have any rifles, that didn't have any blood, except the blood that came from the face of the woman who was shot in the face. Hey Google, what's the name of the woman who was shot on January 6th?
Sorry, I don't know how to help with that.
Ho, ho, ho.
There are other things you can try.
Hey Google, who was shot on January 6th on the Capitol?
I don't know, but I found these results on search.
Really funny. I'm Ashli Babbitt. Hey Google, who is Ashli Babbitt?
Here you go.
Born 1985, died January 6th, spouse Aaron Babbitt. She had a couple movies, Christmas in Florida, education El Capitan High School.
Ashli Babbitt was 36 years old when she died in 2021. The husbands of Ashli Babbitt were Aaron Babbitt and Timothy McKenty.
Anyway, she was literally the only person who was shot there. I think everybody else had died as a result of exertion, of anxiety, people were just beat up. We don't know how many people were beat up on either side, but I don't really respect I don't respect a revolt, a coup d'état that doesn't include a bombing, a huge gunfight, lots of people dying in. I have a theory that it has to be at least as violent as Les Miserables. And hey Google, how many people were killed at the barricade in Les Miserables?
I don't know, but I found these results on search.
The June Rebellion of the Paris Uprising of 1832 was an anti-monarchist insurrection of Parisian Republicans on 5 and 6 June. So there you go. That's the June Rebellion. How many people died? The uprising was over, resulting in the death or injury of around 10,000 people, including the deaths of about 1,500 troops and about 3,000 insurgents. Now that's a start. Like if that happened, and if it wasn't just sort of like a puppet show, and then you know what I mean, like it sort of just feels fake and manufactured. I mean, I expected the Capitol building to be burned down, or there to be extreme amounts of foundational damage, or an attempt to destroy. Hey Google, what rotunda was blown up in Berlin during the 30s?
I don't know, but I found these results on search.
I don't remember. Hey Google, what was the false flag in Berlin that started World War II?
I don't know, but I found these results on search.
Operation Himmler. Hey Google, what's the name of the building in Berlin that has a glass top?
I don't know, but I found these results on search.
The Reichstag Dome. So,
Sorry, I can't send texts yet.
Hey Google, how was the Reichstag Dome destroyed?
On the website history.com, they say, the Reichstag fire was a dramatic arson attack occurring on February 27, 1933, which burned the building that housed the Reichstag in Berlin.
Now,
People also sometimes ask me, what happened to the Reichstag dome? According to wikipedia.org, the ruined building was made safe against the elements and partially refurbished in the 1960s, but no attempt at full restoration was made until after German reunification on the 3rd of October 1990, when it underwent a reconstruction led by architect Norman Foster.
thank you. So, on that note, my tolerance for global violence is a lot higher. So, nothing happened after September 11th. You know, nothing really happened. There was no follow-up bombing, no follow-up attack. Everybody talks about terrible cells flooding up through the border, or there being political right-wing extremists. Like nothing happened. January 6th, complete manufactured event. No police died there. People had heart attacks and strokes and so forth afterwards, but that has a lot more to do with the fact that they were probably old or in poor shape. And honestly, if all the police say that the terror there was worse than what happened in Iraq or Afghanistan, you should probably ask those Marines who were blown up at the Kabul airport during the escape from Kabul, the retreat from Kabul that Biden led. Hey Google, what is the name of the event where the Marines were blown up in Kabul?
On the website npr.org, they say, a year ago, 13 Marines and more than 100 Afghans died when a bomb exploded at the Kabul airport. Stories from the frenetic last days of the American evacuation are still coming out. Mary Louise Kelly, host, 1 year ago today, 13 service members and more than 100 Afghans died when a bomb exploded at the Kabul airport. People also ask me, where were Marines deployed in Afghanistan? On the website MarineCorpsTimes.com, they say, the Marine official confirmed that the roughly 1,000 Marines with the battalion landing team deployed from the MEU to Kabul.
It goes on to say, those Marines were the first on the ground at the airport, keeping the vital lifeline open for vulnerable Afghans attempting to flee and any U.S. citizens who remain in the country. Now, that is terrible. They wouldn't have to make you wouldn't have to convince anybody in America over congressional congressional kangaroo court after congressional kangaroo court. If something terrible happened like what happened at the Reichstag fire or at the Kabul airport or at Tel Aviv and Jerusalem on a daily basis, or on the West Bank, or during 60s, 70s, and 80s London and Northern Ireland, or a daily basis happens in Syria, then, my God, I would believe that we were very close to a civil war. But my pain threshold is extremely high, and maybe I'll tell you why in a second. Hey, welcome back. This is almost over. I know it sucks. This is a terrible thing to know about me, how much callous I have and maybe how jaded I am. Or if you look at it this way, I look at the world through rose-colored glasses. Like, I really am grateful about how extremely safe and how extremely gentle and how extremely friendly and how extremely civilized and how extremely effortless it is to live in America. You know, I'm extremely grateful that back in the 80s and 70s, my mom and dad had friends from New York City who moved back to Israel, and they were always having problems with their greengrocer, their farmers markets, their public buses, and their cafes getting blowed up. My mom and dad also told me about the 60s and 70s in Manhattan, where their favorite Italian restaurant owner was constantly being beat up because he wasn't paying. He was pissing off the mafioso who protected the blocks, and he was unwilling to pay them or couldn't pay them, and they would beat the crap out of him. And I'm sort of used to 70s lawless New York. I also lived on Capitol Hill from 1996 until 2007, and every night I would hear gunshots in my neighborhood. I mean, now it's completely gentrified, but there'd be gunshots all the time. There'd be dodginess. There'd be police. There'd be ambulances. Like, this is just the way the world is. And it could be a lot worse. I mean, I dare say America's not first world. America's never been first world. If you ever been to Manhattan or San Francisco, you know that. It's always been second world. It started off as third world. We were merely, if you will, farmland and mines for the rest of the world. We were basically Africa. America was Africa before Africa became Africa, before China became America. We were the places you could get oil, gas, coal, timber, lumber, same thing. Cattle, chickens, pork, wheat, etc., etc., etc. Like, we were the breadbasket of America, not just in terms of our diversity of peoples, but in terms of the fruit and wine and all those other things. So we've always been that sort of agricultural class rather than elite class. You'll find elite people here, but you'll find elite people in third world developing quote-unquote shithole nations as well. You can tell you're in a second world country or in a third world country by how much protection there is to get to the rich people. Every year it's getting worse. We've got favelas now. They're not called favelas. They're called tent towns or whatnot. But, there's still a way to go. I'm 6'3" and 330 pounds. So I live, and I look poor, I dress poor, I act poor, I wander around in t-shirts and shorts. I'm an ambling fool of a guy. Nobody could ever think that I have anything, and I probably don't. But I've never been mugged. All my friends have been mugged. My tolerance for this kind of chicanery. Hey, Google, what does chicanery mean?
Here's the definition of chicanery: the use of trickery to achieve a political, financial, or legal purpose.
Wow, I'm smarter than I thought. Anyway, on that note, what is your tolerance for terribleness? I mean, that's why I'm pretty okay, you know what I mean? Like with all sorts of risks, probabilities, etc. Like, I think that nuclear power is a viable risk. I think that I'm way less risk averse than most people are. And that's another thing as well. Anyway, guys, I'll come back with some information how to contact me. I hope you love the episode or hate the episode. In either way, please let me know. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. This is season 4, episode 15. 15? 11, 12, 13, 14, 15? 11? Anyway, I don't know. You can reach me at chris@abraham.su. You can call me at +1 202 352 5051. That works with text, calls. That works with WhatsApp, Telegram, and Signal. You can schedule a call at calendly.com/chrisabraham/15. You can leave your hat on. You can find me at youtube.com/chrisabraham, chrisabraham.com, linkedin.com/in/chrisabraham, twitter.com/chrisabraham, instagram.com/chrisabraham, chris-abraham.com, which is my Tumblr, and that might be it. Love you, mean it, talk to you soon. Auf Wiedersehen, choosy, hasta luego, hasta mañana, merci beaucoup, À demain, à tout à l'heure, à bientôt. Aloha, mahalo, and take care.
Thank you for listening to The Chris Abraham Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Until next time.